Hello everyone and welcome to this week's GSM's Pride Spotlight. I have a very, very, very special guest this week. I know I say that every single time, but this one's different. So we're labeled as the Employee Spotlight. However, this guy here does not work for me. He works for Ford, so I got Dylan. Say hi, Dylan.
Hey guys.
So Dylan works for Ford directly. He's my Ford manufacturer rep, and I threw a curveball this morning at him and said, hey, you want to be my spotlight for this week? And he was like, yeah, let's go. Here's the question, though. How many of the questions I'm going to ask him is he going to be able to answer is going to be the question. So let's start off. So Dylan, how long you been with Ford for?
So I've been with Ford now for about 6 months. So this is my first real job outside of college, and obviously kind of a crazy time to get started in the automotive industry, definitely.
Yep. So let's jump back. You said you went, whereabouts did you go to college?
So I went to school in New York. I went to Cornell University.
Oh, really?
Yep. Played football there and went there for 4 years and just graduated last May, and here I am now.
So what position are you playing football?
So I came in as a safety on the defensive side, and then 2 years into college, got a lot of concussions, so they switched me over to wide receiver for the last 2 years.
That's actually, isn't Cornell a pretty big school?
Yeah. Student-wise, I think it's about 17,000 students, and definitely a good experience, definitely challenging education-wise, and obviously sports-wise was pretty challenging as well.
So what was your major?
I majored in industrial and labor relations.
Hence the reason you moved into Ford, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
When you said you played sports there, did you have any kind of scholarship, or what was the deal there?
Yeah, so coming out of high school, I was getting recruited pretty much by all just the different Ivy League schools, and then a couple other smaller MAC, Mid-American Conference schools up in the Midwest. And then once the Ivy League started coming in, I didn't realize I had really an opportunity to go there just based off grades. So obviously football is kind of a big part of why I got in there. And so once those schools started offering me scholarships, I kind of jumped on the opportunity.
That's really interesting. So, that's what the great thing about this spotlight is I get to learn things about people that I didn't know. So you graduated from Cornell, right?
Yep.
Any chance of getting in the draft for the NFL?
After my sophomore year, I had a few scouts coming in talking about me because I started at it was actually an outside linebacker position. I know I said safety, but it was kind of like an in-between position where I guarded all of their tight ends and all their slot receivers and everything like that. Sophomore year, I had a really good season, had a lot of coaches coming in after. I was a lot bigger than I am now. I was like 220 pounds.
Really?
Yeah, I was hitting the weights pretty hard back then, not so much anymore. But yeah, so after that year, I had some serious interest, but then in our last game, I got my 12th concussion, and that was the end.
12th concussion?
Yeah, unfortunately, so yeah.
Wait a minute. Aren't they only allowed like 3 in one season or something like that?
You should only probably have like 3 or 4 ever.
I only had 12.
Yeah, a lot of them came from high school, so that was my 4th one in college, and that's when they're like, all right, your defensive career is over. So it was either stop playing and just help coaching, or move over to the other side of the ball and play a whole different position, lose some weight.
So Zach and I had this conversation when we did my spotlight, but it's crazy to me how many people I know that had a decent career in sports and never made it through injury before they even get to that point. It's insane how many people that happens to. That I think the stars have to align so much to become a professional athlete, not just from the standpoint of how good you are or what position you play, but whether you can actually make it through without getting an injury that's going to be a career ender.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, well, let's shift. So I do know this about you. You were born in Michigan, correct?
Yep.
Grand Rapids, right? Yep. I just went there recently, so some people saw that. When did you, and then you moved to Chicago, correct?
So I was actually born in Chicago and then moved to Grand Rapids when I was little, and then grew up there until I moved here. So this is...
Oh, so you didn't move back to Chicago, you grew up in Grand Rapids.
Yep. Okay. So Grand Rapids to now Kansas City for me.
Okay. And now what's that like moving from Michigan to Kansas City? Because that's kind of a different, especially different weather types and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's been interesting because obviously growing up in Michigan, I actually always considered myself from the Midwest until I moved to Kansas City, and people started telling me, "You're not from the Midwest, you're from the North." And I was like, "Okay." Like, I guess.
Well, Michigan's considered Midwest.
Yeah, that's what I always considered. And then until I moved down there, and people are like, we don't really even consider Michigan too much of the Midwest, at least from Kansas City. I'm like, that's interesting. But yeah, the weather, everything is definitely crazy. Definitely warmer, which I'm excited about. But just in terms of, I mean, it was 90 degrees here the other day?
Yeah.
Literally yesterday. And then today you wake up and it's like high of 60 or something like that. So it's like
that's Missouri.
Yeah, that has been the craziest thing.
That's got nothing to do with the Midwest.
Or it's just
that's the state you live in.
Even this winter, it's been like 70 degrees one day. The next day, there's 2 inches of snow on the ground. I'm like, what's going on here? But
yeah, just so you know, I've only been in the U.S. For 13 years this year, and there's a saying in Missouri that if you don't like the weather, wait an hour. It's true. So let's talk about Michigan for a second. The time change is to Eastern time halfway through the state, right?
Yeah.
I've noticed that when I've driven up there, I'm like, wait a minute, why is it not changed? Then all of a sudden you get to like about or just past Grand Rapids, and then it'll just switch over, right?
Yep. Grand Rapids is actually Eastern time, so even just with my parents and everything, you gotta, when you want to call them, I gotta make sure it's not too late for them or whatever, because we're an hour behind.
It could be worse. It could be 6 hours difference. Like
absolutely.
My mom sometimes she'll text me like 6 p.m. not realizing that it's.
Is that the time change for you? 6 hours.
Yeah, it was 6 hours there, 6 hours in front. So, but
Gotcha.
Here's the thing. Like with me, my mom will say, "Oh, let's Skype." Okay, but by the time I get home, it's going to be past midnight. Before, how are we going to Skype?
Yeah, it's not going to work, Mom. Sorry.
And then the problem is, like in her evening time, it's the midday for me, so it's really tough to Skype with my parents. It's hard.
That's definitely got to be challenging.
Yeah. So let's jump into the automotive. Why the automotive industry?
Yeah. So I guess what got me interested in the automotive industry originally was dirt bikes and ATVs and off-road vehicles and stuff like that. Just growing up in Michigan, we have, I think, the most trail mileage maybe out of any state in the country. So I just grew up riding dirt bikes since I can remember. And through that, obviously, a little obsession kind of started in terms of researching and seeing what was for sale out there. I don't know why or what got me interested in looking up prices and looking for what was out there for sale for dirt bikes and everything like that. But that was the initial interest. I would just be on Craigslist and stuff like that for hours just looking for dirt bikes. So through that, I kind of gained a good idea of what the market was in my area for dirt bikes. And then when I turned 16 and bought my first Ford truck, F-250, 1995, I then had the ability to go and start buying the dirt bikes. And like I said, since even to this day, I'm still probably on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, an hour a day looking at motorcycles, dirt bikes, and stuff like that, just because, like I said, it becomes an obsession. Yeah. Finding deals, making deals, and doing stuff like that. So once I got that truck and had the ability to go start buying dirt bikes, it was pretty easy for me to be able to pick out, since I'd been doing it for the last couple of years, good deals that would come up on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, and I'd just go drive my truck out there, buy them.
Do you have dirt bikes now that you have for yourself, not that you're going to sell?
Yeah, so I have no more dirt bikes. Those are sold now that I'm living in the city, but I did just buy a 1972 Triumph.
Oh, really?
650 motorcycle. Yeah, I bought it down by the Lake of the Ozarks. Pulled it out of a big tractor trailer on some guy's farm down there, brought it back to Kansas City, pushed it into my apartment, put it on the balcony, and I'd work on it. Yeah.
Please tell me you were on the ground.
No, I'm on like the 4th level.
And you have a bike on
I
your
pushed
balcony?
the bike all through the apartment late at night, and got it on the balcony because it needed some work to get it running. Worked on it for about 2 weeks, and the first time I got it running, it's kickstart. Kicked it, started it right up on my balcony. At like 10 p.m. at night, the engine goes, a bunch of black smoke goes out. I'm like, I'm gonna kill it real quick. I'm like, oh shit. I don't want to be getting kicked out.
Please tell me you live by yourself.
No, I have a roommate.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, so that was kind of what got me into the, I guess, automotive industry, or would be dirt bikes and everything like that. And I actually worked at Harley Davidson for an internship in college. And then, like I said, I've been buying and selling dirt bikes and ATVs and all that now for years. So my idea was, okay, I want to learn the dealership industry and, learn everything I can with that. So initially with the job with Harley, that's what I did there because I was working for corporate there as well. But I told them that I wanted to spend most of my time with their dealers and learning their business. So they allowed me to do that. And then the return offer they offered me was for a corporate job in the office, not a job like I have with Ford where I get to be out in the field and interacting with the dealers and working with the dealers. So when Harley said that I needed more experience, I think they said 3 to 5 years of experience before I could move into a role like that. That's when I was like, okay, well, I really want to be working with the dealers out there and learning the industry because that's what I'm passionate about.
So how does one go about getting a rep's job? Because the reason I asked this question is because when you actually came on, I was kind of intrigued how you got that role because usually, and again, there's no disrespect to you, usually most reps tend to have been people that have been in the automotive industry, either sold, manager, that kind of stuff. They kind of transition that way. In fact, I know some that have actually gone back to being a sales manager or whatever. How do you even get that role? Because to my knowledge, it was always word of mouth and say, hey, you should probably look at this or blah blah blah.
Yeah, and that's really what it was, and I was honestly kind of surprised by that too. Because like I said, I wanted this position with Harley originally to be working with their motorcycle dealers, and they exactly what you said I needed 3 to 5 years of experience before I could move into a role like this. So that's when I was like, oh man, like I might not be able to find this role somewhere. And then through word of mouth, one of my girlfriends at the time actually happened to get this position. She knew exactly what I wanted to be doing, and so she was telling me all about it, and she could tell I was asking a lot of questions, obviously, because I was like, it's exactly what I want to be doing. You're working with the dealers, you're out there, like.
And she was with Ford?
Yes, with Ford as well in Dallas. And so she's telling me all about this, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's what I want to do. And she's like, go apply, like it's still open. So that's literally how I found. I don't know if I would have found out about it, honestly, if she hadn't told me, because once Harley told me that, I just assumed, okay, I need to go get a job elsewhere and get experience before I can move into this role. And then she's like, yeah, no, go apply. You don't need any, you just have to have your bachelor's degree, and then it says 0 to 1 years of experience. And she's like, so you should be good to apply. And I literally just went onto their website, didn't have a connection besides that, and she didn't write to HR or anything for me. So I just put in an application on Ford's website, and the process moved pretty quickly after that. I got an email back a couple weeks later for a phone interview, and then did the phone interview, and they flew me out the next week to Dearborn, and then had my in-person interview there, which was pretty cool because we got to go see the River Road plant and go get a whole tour of that and the museum and everything like that. And next thing you know, I got a job offer, and now I'm in the stores, and here we are. I get to work with you and a bunch of other great guys just like yourself.
What's it like? So I always get the impression that sometimes stores won't want to deal with their reps, or don't like dealing with their reps specifically. How is that?
Yeah, and I heard a little bit about that during training and everything. Some warnings just about, like, sometimes these guys aren't going to want to deal with you. Sometimes they might not be the nicest or the friendliest, and the big thing in training was just building relationships with everyone and, trying to genuinely help them and their store in terms of just having on my, my Ford hat and just only caring what the manufacturer wants me to do is just really is, like I said in training, is when they gave us the best insight into, like, hey, don't go in there just like trying to get your own stuff done. Like, take a genuine interest in helping their business and helping them and understanding what's going on.
I'll give you your props. You've been very helpful with us since you started.
Appreciate it.
And unfortunately, or fortunately for you, we've had quite a lot of turnover in reps for Ford, but I know they've been going through a lot of changes. The CEO got changed and all that kind of stuff, so that changed a lot. Let's shift gears a little bit. So I'm going to ask you some questions that you may or may not be able to answer, okay? So for you at home, you have to understand that you work for a manufacturer. It's a little bit tighter than working for a dealership. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, because what I wanted you to understand is that there's a big difference between a manufacturer and a dealership. There's a night and a day difference. So question, the big one that's probably on everyone's lips right now, anyone who knows about the auto industry, what is going on with these chips?
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know, we have Ford uses over 50 microchips different microchips that are, some are interchangeable, some are not, in their vehicles that they use to do anything from the reclining power seats to chips that go into your infotainment center on the dash. And so when COVID happened, Ford stopped, they cut off their supply for a couple months when COVID first started up, just in fear of, obviously, the automotive industry kind of taking a downturn and coming to a halt just with all the uncertainty with what was going on.
And that's not just Ford, by the way. That's every.
Yeah, and that was industry wide. It wasn't just Ford. So everyone decided to kind of make that play and hold off on the chips and wait to kind of see what would happen with COVID and how that would affect the industry. And unfortunately,
we had our biggest year ever.
I guess fortunately and unfortunately,
yeah,
we haven't, obviously, as you know, haven't stopped selling cars. You guys are absolutely killing it. Just had an awesome month, and now it's just coming down to, we don't unfortunately have the inventory right now to replenish you guys.
Yeah.
Like we were just talking about, like if you have the same sales month you did last month, you're gonna have one car on the lot. And so unfortunately, like I said, when we decided to halt that supply, or taking in that supply of microchips, they went, the manufacturer of the microchips, they went elsewhere with their supply, and so they went to Xbox and PlayStation and iPhones and stuff like that, and they started moving those supplies there because that's kind of where the market was going, with everyone being stuck inside, and you saw a lot of the gaming industry and all that stuff go up, so that's where the microchips were going. And then since car sales hasn't really stopped or slowed down, all of a sudden now we're all like, okay, we need our supply back. But unfortunately, like I said, that's gone elsewhere, so now it's just taking us a lot longer than expected to get that supply back. And unfortunately, we have the cars, we can build the cars, but we need those microchips to finish them. Yeah. So we have cars that are just sitting at ramps built without microchips that are waiting.
Well, I appreciate you being honest about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next one that's big on my hit list.
Yeah.
The Bronco.
Yeah.
I know this one's going to be a little bit of a tough one to you answer, but where are we really at on the status of getting these Broncos? And if you can't answer, I understand. But I know there's a lot of social media about the Bronco. The Bronco's a bigger hype than pretty much any vehicle out there right now by any stretch of the imagination. And it just keeps getting put back. Where are we really at on this?
Yeah, so obviously the microchips have slowed us down on the Bronco and everything a little bit too. But now it's just coming down to commodities. And
explain what commodity is to the people that don't understand.
Yeah, so commodities are pretty much the different options that we have available to build out your Bronco the way you want it. So it can be anything from the roof to the trailer tow option on the back to really anything,
color
paint
options,
color. Yeah. So those are all different commodities that we have to take into account before we build those units, because we have constraints on all of the different commodities that we have available. So unfortunately, that's been where a lot of the problems have been happening with why this has been getting pushed back, is because a lot of the orders that we're seeing are all very similar, and they're all, Sasquatch package and certain colors and certain options, and we don't have the capacity to build out all of those orders based on the commodity constraints that we have, because we just don't have the ability this year, at least in 21, to build out all of those orders the way that they specifically want them. So now it's just trying to go through and find which orders are buildable, and then also getting with the customers that have had orders in for a while and speaking with them, and if they may not have a buildable order, and talking with them about changing or mending their order so that we can make something more buildable for them based on what commodities are available.
Okay, let's take you off the hot seat.
Yeah. I don't know if I can give you a time frame, unfortunately, because it is still kind of up in the air and we're kind of figuring it out. It seems month to month, week to week.
Day to day.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take you off the hot seat now, because I know there are two very pressure questions for sure. That's on everyone's lips. Tell everyone at home why you feel that Ford is a good brand. What do you like about Ford?
Oh, well,
because you see a different side to a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people. I'll just give you a little bit where I'm going with this. The problem is that we have with people may say, oh, well, they break a lot. Okay, but that's not given the scope of how many we sell.
Yeah.
You know, if you go down to a percentage, it's a very small percentage that people, you know, but the problem is obviously customers think, oh, I had the one that broke. Okay, but we sold 10 million of them, so 1 out of the 10 million is not a big deal. Why do you feel Ford is a good brand? Because I personally think Ford is a good brand, even though I was way against it when I first came in.
Yeah, so for me, obviously, growing up in Michigan, obviously where Ford is and everything, and I'm a Ford guy myself. My parents drove Ford, so I was kind of bred into being a Ford guy.
Tainted.
Yeah, right from the start. You know, just growing up, a lot of family members that have either worked at the plants or for the, you know, were corporate for Ford. So I was just kind of a Ford guy from the start. Like I said, my first truck I bought when I was 16 was a 1995 F-250. And yeah, like you're saying, I've heard all the, you know, the negative stuff about Ford in terms of, you know, like you're saying, we make so many cars, but some people, you know, you might get a bad car here and there. It happens to everyone.
Happens with TVs, it happens with phones, it
it's
happens with watches. It's all the same.
Yeah, it's going to happen everywhere, especially when you're mass producing items. You know, obviously there's going to be a number of anything that's not going to fully operate the way that you'd want or expect, especially in the first mass production units. And that's more so, I think, where Ford sees those type of cars is obviously we mass produce our vehicles. So in our first mass production runs of our vehicles, those are normally where those, as people would call lemons, or, you know, like cars that have issues early on that may, you know, they may have bought new and have warranty issues. Those are normally our mass production 1 units. So those are the first units that are coming off the line. And obviously that's to be expected. Anything that's first coming out, like there's going to need to be tweaks and changes made. So it's like, yeah, you can say, you know, we may have some cars that happen to have problems early on and stuff like that, but so does every other, you know, manufacturer. And it's like, most of the time, like,
and it's not even just cars. It's literally
anything, and anything that's mass produced. Those
if you get a new iPhone, how many updates do you get in the first 2 months?
Exactly.
It doesn't stop.
And think about the first, you know, whenever the new iPhone that comes out, I'm sure the people getting the first ones out of that first mass production run, there's going to be issues with those, and there always is in any mass production run, because the first run's never going to be their best run. Pretty much in anything you do,
yeah,
you
exactly,
know,
yeah.
There's always going to be tweaks and changes to make.
But why would you say to the people at home, buy the Blue Oval?
Buy the Blue Oval?
Yeah. Why would you buy Ford?
I mean, for me personally, I would never want to be in any other vehicle than Ford, like I already said. So it's hard for me to. I don't really know how to make a case to be in a Ford vehicle other than anything else, honestly.
Okay,
that's
let's switch gears and I'll kind of wrap up. What is it like working for arguably one of the biggest car brands in the entire world? Because let's be honest, Ford is pretty much up there from the standpoint of most well-known. They started the assembly lines. It was them that created it. You know, the Blue Oval is a pretty, I don't want to use the word prestigious, because it's not really a luxury line vehicle, but it's known it's sold in every country in the world.
Yeah.
What is it like working for Ford?
Yeah, so obviously coming into such a big company for my first job, I didn't really know what to expect. And what I've come to realize, obviously, I've only been here 6 months, but it hasn't taken me long to realize, is that Ford really is a family, at least corporate and dealerships. Like, I see both sides because I work with the dealerships and I work with corporate. And really, from both sides of the spectrum, like, I feel like it really is just one big family. The corporate side, like, they really have the employee's best interest and they really want to look out for you and do what's best for you. And, you know, I came in fresh out of college, not really knowing anything about the automotive industry outside of dirt bikes and motorcycles. So really nothing with cars, and everyone's really been super helpful and like willing to mentor and teach, and you really guide you in anything that I needed help with. And it's been the exact same from the dealer network. I have 12 dealerships in the St. Louis region that I call on, and really it's the same thing. I think it's just all about the people. That Ford, that's the common theme, is that it's just good people within the company that are genuine and care about people. So I've noticed that with the dealers and with you guys, and everyone's so welcoming and so nice, and so it's really been an awesome experience, definitely.
Good. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I know that wasn't probably what you expected to come into the dealership today to do. We were talking about wholesale, and next thing I'm asking if you do it. So I do appreciate that. And as always, over at Lufuse Ford, we can replace the car but not the customer. And I'll see you all next week.